And let's get straight to the breaking news in the investigation into the Capitol insurrection. New subpoenas targeting allies of former President Donald Trump. CNN law enforcement correspondent Whitney Wild is working this story for us. Whitney, the targets of these subpoenas, these new subpoenas, include some high-profile names. We've seen these names before. They've been in trouble before.
Well, these are the names we've really been waiting for. We thought they'd be subpoenaed. Finally, they are. We're talking about Alex Jones and, Alex Jones and Roger Stone. Forgive me. They are two people at the very center of these Stop the Steal rallies. Those are the two most well-known names in this list of subpoenas, which includes other names: Dustin Stockton, Jennifer Lawrence, and Taylor Budowich, now the spokesperson for former President Trump. But these, in totality, indicate that they are really going for the people who are at the very center of the Stop the Steal movement and involved in the organization of the Stop the Steal rallies that preceded the riot. The subpoena for Alex Jones, for example, notes that he was denied a speaking role at the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th, but indicates that the White House either told or asked Jones to lead the march to the Capitol, from the Ellipse to the Capitol on January 6th after that rally. The subpoena quotes also directly from Jones' own remarks in December, in which he said, quote, "Finally, Trump has done the right thing. He is now calling on we the people to take action and show our numbers. The time for action is now. Where were you when history called?" Roger Stone's subpoena points out that he promoted his appearance at the Stop the Steal rally and asked for donations from supporters to pay for his security. While he was in D.C., he reportedly used members of the far-right extremist group, the Oath Keepers, as personal security guards, several of whom, according to the subpoena, were reportedly involved in the attack on the Capitol, and at least one of those people has since been indicted. Now, unlike the Jones subpoena, the Stone subpoena points out that he was also invited to lead a march to the Capitol on January 6th, but he ended up not even going to the rally at the Ellipse on January 6th and did not lead a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol that day, Jim.
All right, they're expanding the net. They're widening the net. And I think what's interesting about this is that, yes, we recognize these big names in Alex Jones and Roger Stone, but these lesser-known individuals, they're the ones we're told by our sources that are cooperating with this investigation and helping out providing information. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
What's become clear is that the committee is doing two things. They're going for the big fish, but they're also trying to squeeze lesser people who know a lot but may not have the means of a Steve Bannon, of a Mark Meadows, to shore up their own defense. And from a strategy standpoint, Dustin Stockton's subpoena is really interesting because it points out that he was in direct contact with Mark Meadows and President Trump. The Meadows part is significant because we know that Meadows is not cooperating with the committee in the way that they want. So if the committee can get other people in his circle, all of the people he was talking to, that takes a little bit of the pressure off the committee to actually get Meadows, but it also makes it much more difficult for him to wiggle out of very pointed, informed questions.
He may want to cooperate.
Exactly.
All right, Whitney, thank you so much. Let's get more on the breaking news with CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. He's the author of True Crimes and Misdemeanors, The Investigation of Donald Trump. We're also joined by CNN legal and national security analyst Asha Rangappa. Thank you, both of you, so much for being with us, Asha and Jeffrey. Jeffrey, let me start with you first. How important are these five individuals? I mean, you know, Roger Stone, he's already been pardoned once. He's not going to get a pardon, obviously, from this president. And Alex Jones, I mean, they're two of the most ridiculous, cartoonish liars on the face of the earth. I mean, do we really expect them to cooperate all that much with this investigation, or are we really getting to, you know, what he was just talking about a few moments ago, these lesser-known individuals? They may hold a lot of information that's going to be very helpful.
Well, I think the committee has to act as if they can get every witness they want. They have to go out and try to interview everyone who has relevant information. And clearly Roger Stone and Alex Jones would have relevant information about what went on January 6th. The question of, first of all, will they cooperate? And second of all, can the committee force them to cooperate? Those are obviously important questions, but they're secondary because you got to ask first. And all of these committees, all of these individuals have significant information. They're issued subpoenas, and let's see what they do. Some of them may cooperate, some may not. Some may go to court to fight the subpoenas. Some may wind up being held in contempt. But you have to start that process somewhere, and that's what the committee's doing.
And Asha Rangappa, Stone and Jones are well-known firebrands, much like Steve Bannon. Should we expect, I suppose they're going to fight these subpoenas? What do you think?
Well, Jim, I mean, these are not people who have any colorable claim of executive privilege or something like that, though they may very well try to fight it. As the reporting noted, there are other people, and I think that we need to see the bigger context in which this is happening. The committee has interviewed over 150 witnesses, including some of the people who actually stormed the Capitol, and so they are in possession of information that will potentially make the link between the planning and organization and the instructions that were given to the people who were there. So it's not a fishing expedition. They're going to have specific lines of inquiry. And I think this really raises the stakes for them, because it means that, they don't have a lot of wiggle room to lie. And I mean, we know that Roger Stone was previously indicted in the Mueller investigation for lying to Congress. And so, I think that they are potentially in the crosshairs of, some very specific information that this committee is looking for.
And Jeffrey,
if I can just point out, I mean, the key issue in this entire investigation is establishing what tie, if any, between the rally on the Ellipse, which was a public rally that is protected by the First Amendment. There is nothing wrong with Donald Trump protesting about what he saw falsely as a corrupt election. There's nothing wrong with the rally. The issue is, what is the connection of all the people who were involved in that rally and the riot, the criminal activity that followed? That's the central question, and that's what the committee is looking at.
Right. I mean, I guess, Asha, one of the key questions is whether all of those folks were brought to the rally with the purpose, from some involved in the planning and all of this, to then send them off to the Capitol so they could disrupt the constitutional process of counting those electoral votes officially and making Joe Biden the next president of the United States.
Yeah, and we already know that, there's one link there. As the reporter noted, Roger Stone had the Oath Keepers as his security, and one of those people has already been indicted for criminal activity at the Capitol. So I think that it's likely that Roger Stone and Alex Jones are at least under, some scrutiny by the FBI for their involvement or connections to what happened at the Capitol. And here's where I think there is a potential landmine for this committee, is that if these people do show up and they try to claim the fifth on certain lines of questioning or specific questions, the temptation might be to offer them congressional immunity to testify. And I know Jeffrey will know this because he was involved with Iran-Contra. That can cause potential problems for criminal prosecutions later on. In Iran-Contra, they were thrown out because of congressional immunity. So I think that is something that the committee is going to have to really be careful about, negotiate with DOJ, and make sure they don't mess that up.
And Jeffrey,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, because it's important. You have interviewed Roger Stone, and I'm just wondering, based on your dealings with him, he deals with a lot of reporters around Washington, but based on your conversations with him, how likely is he to be helpful or cooperative? How do you think he's going to respond to this?
I think he will make every legal effort to avoid testifying. I don't think he is going to court an indictment the way Steve Bannon will, but I think he will he will make every effort to avoid testifying. And I think it's important to point out, as Asha did, that there is a simple way to avoid testifying, which is take the fifth. I mean, all of these people, their behavior is under investigation, at least in some broad sense, by the FBI. They certainly have the right to take the fifth, and then
that's the thing I don't understand in this whole thing, Jeffrey. I don't understand why they won't go up there and do that. Is it just to drag this out and to throw a monkey wrench into it?
I think that's part of it. I think they also want to vindicate former President Trump's claim of executive privilege, which requires litigating that issue before Congress. But all of these people have the right to take the fifth, and that will put the committee in a very difficult position regarding whether they give immunity or not.
All right, Jeffrey Toobin, Asha Rangappa, thank you so much to both of you. We appreciate those insights. Thank you.